circles overlapping and a middle circle.
It is a little erotic, I will say.
Anyway. I don't think, no comment.
Thank you, John Venn diagram.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammy and Michelle.
84 people who spend their free time reading the Trinity Study and running Monte Carlo simulations gather at a camp retreat for 3 days. What could go wrong?
Sounds like a scary movie.
It's not scary at all. In fact, it was me and Michelle's last weekend at CAMPFI.
Camp Financial Independence. Yes, Sammy and I went to basically an adult summer camp for people who are interested in financial independence, which was a lot of fun. We had a great time.
It's just like those camps that you go to with your church or when you're a kid, except it's all adults and they're all interested in financial independence. They had awesome presentations. They had breakout sessions where we each get to talk to each other about specific topics. And we're spending the weekend together chatting, doing hikes, doing archery, doing yoga, all kinds of activities. Just really getting to know other people in our community.
Yes, and this was much less of a traumatic experience than when I went to horseback riding camp that one time in the 4th grade. Sammy and I were thinking about all the benefits that come with being able to get together with a group of people, different types of people who are interested in the same thing you are. We saw this weekend that there are so many benefits.
And we wanted to talk about the benefits of meeting people in real life in this post-COVID era and people who are not just interesting, but interested in something that you are also interested in.
Yes, something like CAMPFI, a multi-day retreat where you have the opportunity to build and grow relationships with the person that you see at the sign-in, with the person you get to sit with at breakfast and eat biscuits with. You end up building these really meaningful relationships and other things that surprised us. And so we are going to dive into the benefits of going to an in-person multi-day event and what you can expect. And we'll be pulling from our experience at CAMPFI.
Let's get into it.
But first, we had to bring back our partner, AirHelp, for a very specific reason. And it's because every single person I knew, it felt like my mom, 2 of my friends were flying this past week when there was a huge storm going across the Northeast, going across the East Coast. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, I'm not even sure what happened. I think a door popped off. I feel like I must have read that wrong, but Boeing's be grounded. And here's why we know AirHelp will help you out. In certain countries, many countries like the US, Brazil, Turkey, different countries in Europe, you actually have air passenger rights. So if you have an obscene delay, typically more than 5 or 6 hours, or something goes wrong, you actually are entitled to some sort of compensation. However, if you're like our mom and you just spent hours on the phone trying to rebook your flight, you don't necessarily want to go and then fight the airlines to get this compensation. That's where AirHelp comes in. You go to the link in our show notes, you go to AirHelp, and you just send them your information for your flight, your boarding pass, your flight information, the airlines that you're working with, and they will go and fight the good fight for you. They will go see if there's any compensation and if they can argue for the airlines to give you something, sometimes even just out of goodwill. And the best part is you only pay if they're actually able to get you some sort of compensation. So check out the link in our show notes, whether it was this past week or within the past 3 years. If you run into these travel troubles, check them out. You'll be happy you did.
Back to today's topic. 5 benefits of in-person events based on me and Michelle's CAMPFI experience.
CAMPFI! You know, they should have like a song, but I guess then it gets kind of weird.
Maybe they have a song.
Wow, we're not even in the know.
The great thing about CAMPFI is we got to meet real people who are also interested in financial independence in real life.
A contrast to this, Sammy, is not fake people, but say people online, people who are maybe creating content, tweeting, writing, podcasting. people you haven't necessarily met in the flesh.
We know as podcasters that when we put out information for the general public, we are trying to put out the most helpful information and also the most interesting information, which maybe doesn't always match up with what we would talk about day to day. Being with people who are interested in financial independence in real life really helped us just get to know the round people who are interested in financial independence.
Exactly. The first benefit of going to an in-person event, a conference, or a camp, whatever style the event is that you get to meet these real people because internet personas do not capture real life.
Yes, and that doesn't mean internet personas are inaccurate, but it can't capture the round people that we know, the dynamic, interesting people that we met at CAMPFI. For example, there was a woman we met our first night there, Natalie, who is financially independent, and she, in her free time, generously donates her time to her neighbors. She'll take them to colonoscopy appointments or walk their dogs just to help them out. Maybe that's not the type of thing that she feels inspired to go write about online, or she doesn't want to start a podcast or create a YouTube video, but it is interesting. And meeting her means that we got the opportunity to see what real FI people do with their spare time, the benevolent ways that they act that can inspire us as well.
Yeah, that was just a conversation we were having, chatting with her. Other people enjoy going on multiple cruises during the year. Some people really love their jobs and they get really cool benefits. I think that when we read things online, I know this as someone who has a podcast and writes, you do want to filter in the things that are both interesting and helpful. Sometimes there are things going on in my life that I don't necessarily write about, but are fun to chat about. I met a woman, Raina, and we were joking and laughing about the difficulties of dating Pisces men. You know, if you know, you know. And the truth is, that has nothing to do with financial independence. Maybe there's some things weaving around. She was telling me about her travels. We were talking about different ways that we've used like our time off and freelancing. And we even talked about financial things like when you're a small business or a solopreneur, how do you set up your taxes? But it's nice that we can also talk about these things. I don't write often about my dating life or talk about it, but it was a fun conversation. And so just getting to know these rounded people, many of whom are not writers, podcasters, on social media, they're just living their lives. And I don't know, it was just a nice reminder. And I think for anything that you're interested in, whether it's financial independence, real estate, Pokemon, I don't know what kind of conferences there are, I think it's nice to actually just meet people one-on-one and be like, oh, these are normal people. It's not a bunch of internet personalities.
Exactly. And the nice thing about meeting people in person is we can have a real conversation. Maybe we can talk about some of the things that wouldn't be kosher to talk about on a podcast. For example, many of us were chatting about the benefits of having a low income year on your taxes and the different ways we can utilize that. Of course, maybe that's not the type of thing that we talk about on podcasts, but it is something real that is a benefit, and it's nice to be able to see how other people are doing the same thing.
Sammy, that also brings us to our second benefit of going to an in-person event, conference, camp, if you will. For me, I felt inspired to go deeper in my interest. I felt much more inspired to be a fire nerd because I got to see how much all these people knew. They knew so much about the details of 401ks, Roth, different tax advantages, different credit card points, travel points. There's so much to learn and there's so much you can share and help with other people. And I realized that I was just scratching the surface. And it really inspired me to really go back and do a deeper study, which is something I want to do this year now.
And you guys might not realize this, but I'm the real fire nerd here. I'm the one who was very into financial independence, loves everything about FIRE, the calculations, the studies. I want to know it all. And Michelle, she enjoys learning about it, but she wasn't a nerd until CAMPFI. When she went to CAMPFI, things changed. She was like, we need to do an episode on FI calculators. I'm like, that is about as nerdy as it gets right now. Like, I don't think we can get nerdier.
There's just so many different financial independent calculators. Isn't that interesting? Like, wouldn't you want to know if you're going to be broke, rich, or dead? I just think that's something that everybody wants to know. Oh my God, you're right. Who am I?
this is a great thing. Like if you are really interested in this case, financial independence, and you have a friend or partner who's just kind of scratching the surface and wants to deepen their interest, they don't want to be lectured at by you. Who died and made you king? No, they want to be taken to a fun camp and meet tons of people who are really excited and really interested in this topic and living out their lives in interesting ways. This is true for CAMPFI, but it would also apply to other interests or hobbies that you have. If you want to get other people interested, don't be pedantic and boring. Like, take them to a fun conference where they can learn about it themselves.
Yeah, there's just something about hearing about all the benefits of starting a Roth IRA when you're 18, when you're eating homemade banana pudding. Yes, I did eat dessert during this trip. Sammy didn't. She was very good. Main point being, when you're with these people who are so excited about something, you get to see their eyes light up and also hear about how they helped other people, how our friend Natalie is helping people set up their trust. I'm like, I want to be able to do that. Like if somebody asks me specifically about financial independence, yes, we have a podcast, but I wish I also had a little bit more of the knowledge to be able to go a little bit deeper if someone was interested. And I'm curious too.
The third awesome benefit of meeting people in real life that we experienced at CAMPFI was meeting people who are going through similar struggles. If they have similar interests as you, they're probably coming up against the same type of struggles that you're coming up against.
A perfect example of this, Sammy, is I volunteered to facilitate one of the breakout groups for CoastFi and LeanFi. So CoastFi and LeanFi are basically hitting a financial independent number where maybe you can't retire today, but if you were able to cover your expenses, your investments would take care of you when you're 65 or at retirement age. So people who are interested in that.
Exactly, Michelle. And it's funny because being on sabbatical, I had actually realized, I'm CoastFi, meaning if I don't add to my investments, I'm still going to be okay at age 65 or much sooner. And I'm close to LeanFi. LeanFi is like the lowest financial independence number that you could have to live. And I've really started to realize that being in this category, I could work a minimum wage job for the rest of my working years and still become a millionaire, still retire without a problem. And this has made me really appreciate that I can literally do anything with my time, and I should not do anything that I don't like doing. But I really realized this when I went to the CoastFi to LeanFi support group that Michelle facilitated at CAMPFI.
Breakout group, but it did feel like a support group.
Breakout/support group. It was amazing because all of us kind of started to realize this, and this is actually something that's not talked about that much in the financial independence community. But we all realize we're kind of leveraging this position of power, though it's not financial independence completely, to do the things that we want. Actually, that phrase, once you hit these numbers, you should not spend any time doing things that you don't like doing unless you want to. That was said by somebody in that group. And it really hit me. I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. Like, there is no reason I should do anything I don't want to do because financially, that's not what I need to do.
Yes. And what I loved was we had questions from, what the heck is this? Like, let me be vulnerable and express that I don't even know what CoastFi, LeanFi is.
That question actually led to some nuances in how people interpret that information.
Oh, yeah. A great debate, honestly. I loved our friend Sam said, well, I think LeanFi and FatFi and CoastFi are actually relative to other people. One man's LeanFi is another man's FatFi, if you will. And so it was just nice to be able to go through the basics, to answer questions like, my sabbatical is almost over, but I do not want to go back to my full-time job. What are my options? And we could share our different experiences. And I agree with Sammy. Like, it was so helpful to hear people say, our friend Josh said his mom actually retired and she worked during the holiday season at Williams-Sonoma. And those dollars are working for her now. Somebody else said they love their job. And they're like, look, I love my job. I get flown in a private jet across the country sometimes. That's not so bad. And I appreciated that perspective as well.
Yeah. Other people were pursuing entrepreneurship, or they decided to take contract work instead of having to go to a W-2 and get involved in office politics. Some people were traveling. People were utilizing this in all different ways. And it was a concept that I was just starting to uncover alone at home. So to find that other people were discovering this as well was just like so exciting and also so enlightening.
It's not just about the struggle, Sammy. The fourth benefit is the inside jokes, the similar vernacular. Being with a group of people and you can make these little comments and they just get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. We in the FI community got jokes, but oftentimes we have no one to share these jokes with. Or maybe we share the jokes sometimes and then we're just laughing alone to ourselves and nobody else knows what we're talking about. Not speaking from experience. Being at CAMPFI, I had so many lols, LOLZ, standing for extra funny, because these jokes were just getting me. Like everybody would always be saying, oh, yep, and that makes you 4 seconds closer to FI, meaning you do some sort of sacrifice in your life, thinking that it's going to save you a ton of money, but really maybe it lowers your FI number or your FI timeline by like, a few days or something. And it's like, dude, that's not worth it. Like, don't hurt yourself. Like, just do what you want to do.
Well, it's funny, Sammy, because we spoke at CAMPFI, but another speech that I absolutely loved was Charmarie. She was talking about credit card points, and it was the funniest presentation. I never thought I would be laughing so hard hearing someone talk about travel hacking. But she shared a photo of her in Colombia wearing a crown and a photo she shared on Instagram so that she could save like $1 off of her meal. And yeah, she tagged it 4 seconds closer to FI. And little things like that, like everybody was just laughing.
And she's like, I've always wondered how much I would sell my dignity for. Turns out it was $4. And when you're with a group of cheap people, you can laugh together about that.
Yes, another banger from her. She said, friends don't let friends buy Delta cards. She called them, basically it's like the rupees of Sky Miles.
Yes. She pointed out something that is technically very interesting, which is that Delta points can be a large number, but they almost have no value when you compare them to things like the Chase Ultimate Rewards points. And when you're talking to a bunch of people who know the Chase showdown of their credit cards and they kind of understand the Delta card a little bit and how that might not have value, and somebody says, friends don't let friends buy Delta cards, we laugh. Because it's like, yes, those points are worth nothing. They sound like a big number, but they are the rupees of the sky.
Yes, exactly. And we remember it. Now I know. Otherwise, I don't think I would remember anything about Delta Sky Miles or points.
Agree. And number 5, the last benefit that we're going to talk about today of attending something like CAMPFI is the Venn diagram of interests.
Yes. Picture this, a Venn diagram, aka 2 circles, they overlap in the middle.
Can we just talk about how on point Venn diagrams are?
So great.
As somebody whose archetype is essentialist, whoever invented Venn diagram, it's like visual like pleasure for somebody who's an essentialist. Like that is it right there. Circles overlapping and a middle circle.
It is a little erotic, I will say.
Anyway. I don't think, no comment.
Thank you, John Venn diagram. Point is not about the efficiencies of Venn diagram. So the point is...
We went on a little bit of a Venn diagram tangent there.
Okay, so we have a Venn diagram. And something Sammy and I really appreciate is like when you go to an event, an in-person event, especially a conference, you're with these people for a few days, and you have one similar interest, we're already meeting in the middle. What happens is a lot of times there are other overlaps. For example, we like financial independence. Surprise, surprise, we are people who love discipline or taking care of ourselves or thinking about our future. And there are other fun topics around that.
It's funny, Michelle, because one of the presenters there, Oz Chen, he actually talked about the different ways people talk about financial independence. One was through finding financial independence through Mr. Money Mustache, another one through Vicki Robbins, and another one through Tim Ferriss. And I laughed because I did read the 4-Hour Work Week like 2 or 3 years before I got really into FI, but I think I have that leaning, like the biohacking, like the optimizing type of personality. And like, that's how I love financial independence. And you're exactly right. Like there is a Venn diagram of people who like financial independence and then also like biohacking. So how excited was I when Oz was telling us that they have free coffee and cold plunge meetups in Los Angeles? I was like, yes, we need to start this in Charleston. That sounds so fun.
What an amazing event. A, free. B, coffee. C, cold plunge. How could you not love that? And it was funny. Oz, even during his presentation, talks about how he has a dating bounty or prize money for a referral for dating. And I was like, so do I.
When he said that during the presentation, I almost spazzed out and Michelle was like nudging me with her elbow. But I was like, my sister is doing the same thing.
Sammy was freaking out. It was embarrassing for me.
And other things, like Felissa talked about Dr. Peter Attia's book, Outlive, which is one of my most favorite books from last year. It talks about health and how to increase your lifespan and your health span, how healthy you are going to be over time. And for me, one of the biggest benefits of being able to take time off and be coast fire is that I can focus on my health. Like I can exercise every day. I can try to eat healthy every day. It's something that's going to prolong my lifespan. And it was really interesting to see that she also really loved that book. And it's not just because of the health span information, but also because she sees how financial independence can really accelerate that journey of health and healthy living.
And the coolest part about that is that then they can give you recommendations for those same other specific interests. For example, James off the cuff during our travel breakout said a jump rope is the best travel-friendly exercise that you can pack in your suitcase.
That is so funny because I wasn't part of that breakout, but I used to take a jump rope to work. So you see how we're all thinking the same. And like, even though that's not related to financial independence, you know, we have similar outside interests as well.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing, I remember talking at dinner with Felissa in that same conversation, we were sort of talking about how once you get really deep into something, say like our interest in financial independence, you start to understand it and you're not necessarily trying to squeeze the lemon and reading more and more books. Like there's a certain point where you're at capacity. I felt this way about personal development. But they can, because they like the same things or they enjoy the same sort of learning and growing, if they have a tangential interest, then they can share that. And you can also kind of have another rabbit hole to go down.
It's pretty much like meeting a bunch of people and being like, hey, what's my next rabbit hole?
Exactly. Also, everybody's interested in communal living.
Multiple of our different communities, CAMPFI, a lot of the different meetup groups that we're part of,
Deep Talk,
a lot of the people we're friends with, everybody is interested in communal living. Like we want to have houses on a property with a community space. It's so funny how often this comes up.
And it's not surprising to me, Sammy, because we all know and love the same things that are online. And we're like, but what if we all physically lived each other? What if it wasn't just once or twice a year we got together? So I can see how the interest in communal living is sparked.
Takeaways.
Takeaways for this episode. The biggest takeaway? If you have an opportunity to go to an in-person event in a subject matter that you are interested in, take it. And if you're interested in financial independence, go to CAMPFI. The more intimate these kind of in-person events can be, like not necessarily a huge conference, maybe a little bit less people so that you can get to know everybody a little bit more deeply, the better. But I really think any of these type of events about something in your subject matter is going to be a win.
And those benefits of going to an event, big or intimate, you can tailor it to your own specific extroversion if you want to, but the benefits are the same. You get to know real people. It's not just online personas. It's not this filtered down version that we can put on the internet. It's real people, their full selves. You can joke with them about all the different things that you like financial independence, and also maybe random things like, holy crap, why is it that Pisces men are so emotional?
You could share your struggles outside of the Pisces men situation that you're having there. You may be struggling with how to comprehend this coast-fi, lean-fi situation you're in. Turns out there's 20 other people who are interested and they want to start a breakout session about it. Yes. That is the kind of fun things you can do at these kind of events.
And of course, we love a good inside joke. I mean, we have inside jokes here at Build a Wealthy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
To you guys, you know, we love our sabbaties. We love our jobby mindset.
We love keeping up with the Jonases.
Keeping up with the Jonases. is what it should be. But with communities that are as big as financial independence, it's also nice to have little funny presentations with jokes. And now Sammy and I can say to each other, 4 seconds closer to Phi.
Number 4, you can figure out the Venn diagram of interests that overlap with the people who are interested in the thing that you're interested in. For us at CAMPFI, we found a lot of people into biohacking, a lot of people into health, a lot of people into personality quizzes, a lot of people into communal living, a lot of people into RVs or traveling as nomads. So many overlapping interests that are not necessarily directly related to financial independence. And also, they are future learning rabbit holes for us.
Sometimes there are things that you are going to get excited about that you don't even know exist yet, which is amazing.
Exactly. You can get deeper into your interests. You can be like Michelle and spend your weekend playing with different financial independence calculators.
You know, I just really feel like I need to properly go through J.L. Collins' book, maybe Ramit Sethi's book, Vicki Robbins' book,
Christy and Bryce.
Quit
Like a Millionaire. That's one of my most favorite, most complete books about financial independence. I thought they did a great job.
Exactly. I don't even know. I haven't even read that one. So I'm excited.
Community time.
Before we say goodbye, it's our
community time. I thought it'd be cute if we said it together.
This week, we want to shout out Jess. Jess shouted out Build a Wealthy Spirit, specifically our episode on spending with your values in her Oak and Grain Furniture Refinishing newsletter.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jess. We really enjoy Jess's videos on refinishing furniture. She does such an amazing job.
She's been doing her kitchen now. It looks amazing. We'll link to it in the show notes.
We will link to it in the show notes. Also, it's funny, we said in our last episode that we were going into CAMPFI and hopefully we have friends. I think we do. I think we have made some friends. We had such an amazing experience at CAMPFI. So if you're listening to this and you were at CAMPFI, I cannot even list everybody out of fear of leaving anyone out, but it was such an amazing time. We had so many great conversations. You are all in our friend database. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know, inside joke. And big thanks to Steven for inviting us, letting us speak on how to build a community step by step. And thank you, Joe and Jordan, our mentors, for supporting us and encouraging us to go.
Yes, now we want to go to all the CAMPFIs.
Yes, and people there have been to like 8 CAMPFIs, 10 CAMPFIs. There's multiple a year all across the United States. So it's kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. And if you are listening to this, if you went to CAMPFI and you're listening to this, buildawealthyspirit.com, leave a comment, say hello. We'd love to hear from you. We're sure you have a takeaway from the event, so we would love to hear it. And also, if you're just listening to this podcast, you're sitting there, you're thinking, I went to a really cool event like Landmark or Tony Robbins' concert or something that we might not have heard of.
Ooh, yes. Tell us. If there was an event that you went to that you felt was life-changing, tell us. Because we want to go too.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, we're in the same Venn diagram, the most beautiful shape in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So let us know. buildawealthyspirit.com. You can actually go there and you can actually leave a comment on the notes for this episode. We will respond. We would love to hear from you.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rule book and we rethink the status quo.
I did eat dessert during this trip. Sammy didn't. She was very good. I was stoned.
I actually did eat a cookie one day because we were late for lunch, and I was like, lunch was almost gone. This is not common there. To be clear, you will be fed.
It was our fault. We were like 40 minutes late to an hour
because we were
lunch.
chatting. This is what we're talking about. We were having fun. We were talking with people, and then we're like, crap. We're about to miss lunch, and so I was like, I need to eat a cookie so I don't die. Not to be dramatic.
Honestly, it was dramatic. There was other food, but